There is a word you have used your entire life. You've seen in history books, you've said it in conversation, you've played video games named after it, you watched movies built around it, and in all that time, not once did anyone tell you what it actually means. Not the sanitized version, not the Hollywood version, the real one. Because once you hear it, the word never sounds the same again. The word is assassin. Say it out loud for a second. Assassin. It sounds almost elegant, doesn't it? Two sharp syllables, clinical, precise. Even the video game franchise, one of the best-selling in history, turned it into something cool, something noble, a brotherhood of warriors with a creed and a code. But here's what Assassin's Creed never told you. Here's what your history teacher glossed over. The word assassin doesn't come from a brotherhood. It doesn't come from blades or hoods or ancient oaths. It comes from something far darker and far stranger. And when you understand where it actually comes from, you start to realize it says something deeply unsettling about what humans are willing to do to other humans and why. To find the origin, you have to go back to 11th century Persia. The year is roughly 1090 AD. The Islamic world is fracturing, the Crusades are beginning, empires are colliding. And in the mountains of northern Persia, in an almost unreachable fortress called Alamut, a man named Hassan-i is building something. Not an army in the traditional sense. He's building something more dangerous than an army. Hassan-i was the leader of a sect called the Nizari Ismailis, a branch of Shia Islam that had been pushed to the margins of power. They were outnumbered, outmatched, surrounded by enemies on every side. So Hassan made a decision. He would not fight armies, he would fight individuals. He created a network of highly trained operatives, young men, recruited young, indoctrinated deeply, deployed strategically, whose only purpose was to eliminate specific, high-value targets, caliphs, crusader commanders, political enemies. They were extraordinarily effective, and they terrified everyone. And their enemies, the crusaders, the rival caliphs, the chroniclers who wrote about them, started calling them something. The hashin, or, as it passed through Arabic, into French, into Italian, into English, assassins. Now, here's where it gets strange. Hashin in Arabic means essentially hashish users, cannabis consumers, people who smoke. That's the word. That is the root of assassin. And for centuries, historians, scholars, and storytellers ran with the obvious explanation. Hassan-i must have drugged his operatives, gave them hashish, made them fearless, maybe promised them paradise, a literal garden of pleasure, and then sent them out to kill. The story was so compelling that Marco Polo repeated it in the 13th century. European crusaders brought it home. It became legend. A secret leader, a mountain fortress, young men drugged into divine service, killing for the promise of heaven. It was the perfect story, exotic, terrifying, psychologically fascinating. There's just one problem. It was probably never true. Modern historians have looked at the actual contemporary sources, the Nizari texts, the Persian chronicles, the accounts from within the sect itself, and found almost no evidence that Hassan-i used hashish as a tool of manipulation. The word hashishin was almost certainly a slur, a term of contempt thrown at them by their enemies, the same way political opponents throughout history have called each other degenerates, criminals, addicts, to delegitimize, to dehumanize, to strip away complexity and replace it with a single disgusting image. The Nizaris were called hashish users the way you'd call someone a thug or a junkie or a fanatic, not because it was accurate, because it was effective. And here's the haunting part, the part that should make you pause. That slur traveled through centuries, across languages, across continents. It passed through the crusaders who feared them, into French, into Old Italian, assassino, into English, and today, the word that defines the most extreme act of targeted political killing in the English language is a medieval insult, a lie that stuck. Think about what that means for a moment. We have a word baked into law, into history, into journalism, into the names of Senate committees and UN resolutions and international legal frameworks, and the word itself is propaganda. It is the enemy's voice echoing forward through 800 years, still winning the argument. And now think about Assassin's Creed. That franchise has sold over 200 million copies. It built an entire mythology around the idea of a noble order, the assassins, who stand against tyranny, who protect the innocent, who operate by a sacred creed. But the name of that order came from people who hated them. It's as if someone built a religion around a slur, as if the persecuted embraced the insult so completely it became their identity. Which, by the way, history is full of exactly that. Groups reclaiming the words used to degrade them, wearing the slur as armor. But that raises an even darker question. If the word assassin was born from propaganda, from the deliberate dehumanization of people your enemies wanted you to fear, then what does it mean that we still use it, unquestioned, that it sits in legal documents as if it's neutral? Every time we say assassin, we are, in the smallest possible way, still speaking in the voice of a 12th century smear campaign. Language doesn't just describe history, language is history, and most of us are carrying it around without ever knowing the weight of it. Here's what I want you to sit with. Hassan-i operatives, whatever you call them, changed history. They altered the political landscape of the medieval world. They were feared by caliphs and kings. Their methods were studied, copied, refined across centuries into what intelligence agencies still do today. And they are remembered, still remembered, by a word their enemies invented to mock them. The real word for them, in their own tradition? Fidai, those who sacrifice themselves, those who are devoted. Not hashishin, fidai. But we don't say that word. We never learned it, because history is written by whoever survives long enough to write it. And Hassan-i fortress at Alamut was eventually destroyed by the Mongols in 1256 AD, and most of the Nizari records burned with it. So all that remained was the slur, the enemy's word, still breathing, still sharp, still used in courtrooms and history textbooks, and yes, in a video game played by hundreds of millions of people who never once thought to ask what it meant. And that is the most disturbing thing about the word assassin. Not that it refers to killers, but that it is a killing, the quiet, patient assassination of an entire people's self-definition, replaced by a lie that the whole world now calls the truth. The most dangerous weapon ever used against the Nizaris wasn't a sword or an army or the Mongol siege of Alamut, it was a word, and it's still working.